Well, here we are, January 10th in the old grow lab. Just a quick update again. You know me and my quick updates. Just too darn busy for anything else. I actually came in here to film this right here. This is an important thing for growers to learn. Do you see these plants? Do you see this leaf standing up like this? This wilty kind of weirdness, sort of. Yeah. So, obviously you can't feel this weight, but this crate is not light, but it's getting light. So all this like weird wiltish, they don't look quite right? What I'll do is I'll grab a clip from a previous video when they're fully well watered, or I'll water them and I'll get a clip afterward. That's what I'll do. And I'll show you the difference. I just want to point out the visual difference. When a plant starts to be low on moisture, especially in crates like this where we don't have deep soil reserves and they can pull moisture from the deeper reserves, you'll see them start to do this. So when I come in and I see a plant that looks like that, I'm like, oh, somebody needs water. So we're going to give them another shot of water. And I'll take you down here in the soil quick. We'll get down in the soil. See how that's drying out around the base of the plant? See, this is what starts to happen when you work with these like pre-mix mediums like this. Like this is Pro Mix with a Kiss Organics blend in it. Not much else. It really needs worms and humic matter and a few more things, right? But it's a good base starter mix. But one of the things that happens to this stuff is when they start to dry out, they dry out fast. And the interesting part is you'll look at the soil like here and see this is moist, right? It'll kind of hold as a clump a little bit. It's still pretty moist. That's good soil moisture right there. But when you come over into the root zone of the plants, and you can see it here on this larger Tulsi, this Uana Tulsi, you see at the base of the plant, you can see how that moisture, let me zoom you right in there. You see how that moisture is like, it's drier right around the base of the plant? What that is these plants are growing so fast and transpirating so rapidly, they're able to deplete the moisture zone in the root zone of the plant before the whole planter can allow moisture across through the medium, right? So that's why you see this wilting thing, even though we might have moist soil in here, what appears to be moist soil in here. And so that's why I like the weight heft. There's a great sense of where you're at. And this is just, I mean, I just watered this a couple days ago. The growth is really climbing up. But, so you don't want to be too heavy, right? You don't want to oversaturate. But like this is at a point when I see this where I'm like, okay, that's the first sign that they need water. So it's time to hit them with some water. I know this is a long explanation, but I feel like these are details that if you've never grown plants before or aren't really intimately familiar with plants and the signs, the visual signs they give you, then you'll miss stuff like this and it'll cost you your crop. Okay, it may not cost you your crop, but it will cost you yields. I can guarantee it will cost you crop yield. I'm filling the water jug right now and I'm going to water these immediately. So we're looking at 8:57 p.m. I'll check back on these before I crash out, and I'll bet you anything they've perked up in an hour or two. Actually, I'll check back more frequently. When we see them perk up, I'll get a clip. Just doing some watering on the tomatoes here. These two, that one's holding out since yesterday's watering pretty well. This block of soil here has been a little dry on top, and I've been trying to hit it with the water. But I realize it is a factor in some of these health issues we're seeing on this plant. We are seeing some calcium, potassium deficiencies, and things aren't quite balanced, right? This plant doesn't look healthy and happy. And yet, this plant is vibrant. These plants are vibrant, full of life and energy. So, again, let's just look at that. This is a plant that is not healthy. It's not horribly sick, but it's not healthy. That's like most humans. This is a plant that's super vibrant, tuned in and running. Look at the growth on this thing. I just tied this up yesterday here. This growth here, at least 6 inches, if not 8, is in 24 hours. That's since yesterday. These guys, I filmed these guys a week ago and they were 2 little plants down here. They're throwing branches, they're building frame, they're setting flower, and I actually had to start staking them up yesterday because they're getting too big for their britches and falling over. And I'm going to have to do that again here. I'm going to have to tack it back again. Look at that growth though, man. Things are just on fire. Almost maybe a little too much there, huh? A little curl there. Anyway, one thing I don't like to see in a grow space is bare soil, especially when I pay premium price for the power, for the floor space, all that kind of stuff. We want to maximize our advantage of every bit of that light. So I see this open spot, I go, what goes good with tomatoes? You know what goes good with tomatoes? More large leaf basil. You know why? Because I love it, and my son loves it, and I'm sure anybody else who tried some would love it. So I'm going to throw some large leaf basil seed in here, and that'll do 2 things for us, right? That'll help cover this soil and protect it. Remember the rule about covering and protecting your soil? You didn't think I put this basil in here just to eat, did you? Yeah. Same thing here. We got bare soil. That's not good. That's not how nature does things. Nature keeps soil with plants growing in it covered. Covered with mulches of previous material, or covered with green growing plants. Anytime it's not that, what you have, what you're describing, is a desert. So you might also wonder why when I see this plant so unhealthy compared to these other plants. Let's just put this all in context. Different variety, different variety, different variety. So each variety has its own specifics that it likes. Cannabis is a great example of this. If you talk to cannabis growers, they'll tell you some cannabis varieties or strains really prefer heavy feeding. And some can't take heavy feeding. You'll actually kill the plant if you do that. And vice versa. Same applies for all different varieties of all types of plants. Again, anytime you're working with plants and soils, you have to have context for it. The plants you're working with, the soil system you're working with, the environment you're working in, the trace mineral levels you're working in, all those pieces are factors that matter on how you're going to handle the problem. After I continue to keep this water more uniform, if I continue to see a problem, I may address the nutritional deficiency. But the reason I'm not for now is because this was just transplanted into this big 20-gallon pot, and at least 10 gallons of that is new, freshly mixed soil with nutrient in it that I know to be balanced, or relatively balanced. And I know that because same soil, same soil, same soil, same soil, same soil. You get the idea. So that's why. I don't think it's actually the soil. But, you know, I could be wrong. It is filling fruit and setting more flowers, so there is a huge nutrient demand on this plant that is not yet on either of these. This kind of ended up being kind of a long video, but I feel like these details are really important for people to learn if you want to grow really healthy, happy plants and really enjoy really tasty foods and get that epigenetic gain out of it, where it helps your DNA replicate correctly and builds your immunity and does all those wonderful things that we know to be true scientifically. You want that to happen, it starts in the soil and at the plants. And you can never separate the two. You can't work with the plant without the soil, and you can't work with the soil without the plant. And you should always remember that the soil is the digestive tract of the plant, just like we have a digestive tract where we absorb all our nutrition. The soil is their digestive tract. And just like the human gut, it needs biological function, the right biological function, the right trace mineral nutrition to support enzymatic function, and so on and so forth. So that's another way to relate to it. What is nutrient density? Is it hard to achieve? How do we achieve it? How do we measure it? And how do we define it?
I mean, any one of these ways of assessing that a lot of people pay attention to don't connect to nutrition. What does connect to nutrition is the there, but it's definitely building. It effectively refers to the variation in nutrient levels in food. So, like I said, this carrot versus that carrot, not carrots versus wheat, but carrot versus carrot. And if you look at a bag of carrots, X amount of vitamin D, X amount of, whatever carbohydrates. And the implication there then is that all carrots are uniform. And that actually is some organic food is grown in a way that is not really supporting a high level of life in the soil and is relatively low in nutrition. And some organic food is grown in a way that is supporting high levels of life in the soil and is the way you would be able to figure it out. So the concept is there's no QR code, there's no certification label, there's no barcode, all those things can be there. But the way you figure out what's an 80, what's a 20 is by literally flashing a light at the carrot, and it reads the carrot, which is how we read what stars are made up of light years away. And anybody who knows anything about a light year is a long ways away, right?
Yes.
So at 2017, which we founded the organization in 2010, and the first number of years were working with principles of biological systems, which is it's a 2-day course, which you can find on YouTube if you look up my name or look up the BFA on YouTube. Inspired individual, not necessarily famous, but like, all right, who's like really cool, got something to offer, and we recorded all those and put those on YouTube as well. So we've got a whole like bunch of intellectual capital there, which most people don't know what's there and aren't accessing it, but for whatever it's worth, that was the first 2 years of the organization. And at some point we said, okay, it's sure.
Don't mind the mess. We're still working on this project and a few others. Back to just review this quickly. We're sitting, maybe we're a quarter tank. I was telling my friend probably half a tank, but maybe we're a quarter tank, but we're not 9:55. I believe it was 8:57 in the previous clip. 1 hour, and we're starting to show already plants perking back up. There's still a little wilt hanging around here and there, but these are starting to perk. 11:24. Well, not everybody's perked back up, but we got a couple that are starting to show. Oh dear Lord, it's almost 1 a.m. and I'm up way later than I should be. Really should go get some rest, and I'm getting ready to crash out, but I actually got watching my own YouTube channel looking for old content to use for promotional stuff, and I found so much stuff that I've spent the last couple hours watching my own channel. So if you haven't seen all the stuff on my channel, you should probably go check it out. Foliar feeds, starting strong seedlings, building soil carbon, trace mineral nutrition. I go on and on and on and on and on. And honestly, I go back and watch my videos, and I'm being reminded of many things that I hadn't thought about or talked about in years, even though those concepts are kind of integrated into my systemic operation. I don't think about them, and it's good because it's making me think about them again. So maybe it'll help you. Point is, it's several hours later, and you can see these plants have perked back up quite a bit. There's quite a difference visually. Well, now it's 8:44 a.m. the next morning. And what do we have here? Oh, look at that. You see the difference? You see how those plants look compared to last night? I'm going to split the screen here and give you a half-half side-by-side so you can really compare them. Here we are at 2:11 p.m. coffee break the next day. And they've really come around. And you can see a very distinct visual difference. So, given that I've taken several different clips here as they've perked back, figured I'd grab another shot later in the day. Quite a different example of how controlling your watering correctly, especially in containers, this applies to soils outside as well, though, dramatically affects how everything works in the soil system, or in the plant system, consequently, and vice versa, and vice versa.